Hi everyone, Jan here from Fursdon House again. I have something very special that I want to share with you today. But first I want to give you a backstory, because there's always backstory. But what this is something that I've actually created from something that was actually going to be thrown away after it was completely used up, and I've ended up actually repurposing it. So let's move this aside and I'll let you know what I'm talking about with this. For those of you who know my work, I use a lot of brown paper. I love the look of it, and it's just one of my favorites to use. And where I've been using this brown paper from are these books that I've purchased. Got them from Walmart about a year ago, year and a half. Very inexpensive, $4.50 or something like that. They had like 240 pages. And unfortunately, Walmart doesn't sell them anymore. I've looked online, I've looked everywhere and can't find any. So anyway, I have about 15 of them purchased still that I haven't used. When I first did it, first I cut out all the pages, and you can see here where the thread is, and I would just take out those that had been sewn in, and then that left pages that were glued in. So here you can see where I've taken out the sewn ones, but what's left is glued in. And in my first book I just ripped them out. I didn't like that look. I much prefer this look where you can cut them out, or cut the threads, because it gives you a larger sheet. But anyway, when I take out all of these out of this book, it left about 32 pages of those that were still glued in. And like I said, I didn't like tearing them out because it was a smaller sheet and everything, so I just put it aside. And also, for those of you who know my work, I've been working a lot with pressed flowers lately. And a month or so ago, I got the idea from I got the idea to take my pressed flowers and put them in the book that was left over. And I knew I needed 2 pages, to put a pressed flower in between them, and cutting out a hole and putting acetate in the whole 9 yards. So that's what I did. I took this book and I cut out my templates and got my acetate in and put the pressed flowers that I had, and then I just put it aside because I wasn't quite sure where it was going to develop from there. Well, about a week ago, I was going through some of my books, and I came across Cecily Mary Barker's books. She's another favorite artist of mine. Her and Edith Holden are about my most favorite artists. And Cecily Mary Barker was, her first book she published was in 1923, and it was called The Flower Fairies of the Spring. And she's known particularly for her depictions of flower fairies, tree fairies, all kinds of little fairies, and how they relate to nature and the woods and flowers and what have you. And I love her work. So it almost immediately came to me I needed to combine my pressed flowers with her work. And what I wanted to do is actually a tribute to Cecily Mary Barker, and that's what this book is. At least that's my goal, what I started out from. And so what this is, it's a journal. It is made up of original pages from 3 of Cecily Mary Barker's books, a Flower Fairy alphabet, which is the first one I used, and then Flower Fairies of the Trees, and then Fairyopolus. So let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to give you the dimensions first. It's 6 inches wide, 8 inches tall, and a 1-inch spine. And this will be for sale in my Etsy shop. I've just tied it closed with a green ribbon, very beautiful ribbon. I love this ribbon, it's some of my favorite. I love it when I get things that I love, that especially I can get them on sale. So the cover of the book is from the book Fairyopolus, and this is the Willow Tree Fairy. And she is one of my favorites. Willow trees, any weeping willow trees, weeping mulberry trees, which we also have here. But when we bought our house almost 30 years ago, it was our very first house. We're still living in it, And the thing that attracted me most, more than anything else, was the fact that there were 2 large willow trees, very large willow trees, in the front of the house. We did not buy the house just for that, but it was certainly what gained my attention. And so I took this page from the Fairyopolus book and put in some small buttons, and they have to be small because little flower fairies are small. And here we have the spine, and that's just crocheted lace, cotton crocheted lace. And here's the back page. This page is the only page that is not from the 3 books, and this sheet came from Stamperia's Spring Botanical collection. Absolutely beautiful scrapbook paper. And but this one worked better than anything else. I tried pages from the book and it just, nothing worked. But this one, as soon as I saw it, I was like, yep, that's it. So that's what's on there. And let's go ahead and open it up. And again, what I'm looking for in this book, or what I have tried to do, is to do a tribute to Cecily Mary Barker. So on the first page, we have a picture of Cecily. This is the actual picture of her, not Tim Holt's instant ancestors, as it may look, but this is Cecily Mary Barker here. And however, the frame is Tim Holt's, and I thought it went so well together. The picture came from the book Fairyopolus. And so, again, what I've done, to kind of give you an idea here, you can see just through the book here, that these are the pages that were left, and I glued them together, put the acetate in the center of the cutout templates, and then that's what I pressed the flowers in with. And then, so that's how it's done. And then I also inked the edges of the pages and what have you. The first small book I used was the Flower Fairy alphabet. So you can, this is what these cards came from. I literally just cut the pages out, and then I used the Flower Fairies of the trees, and then some more Fairyopolus pages. So let's just go ahead and get started. I also had fun. This is the first time that I've done this using the gold paper clips, but I twisted the end. I don't know who came up with that idea. It is so sweet. It's not something you want to do all the time, I don't think, but for this project, it just seemed to work perfect. So if anyone knows who came up with that idea, please let me know in the comments below. It is so sweet. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and I have to tell you, I am OCD. When I first did this, as I said, I put the flowers all in, and then it was sometime later when I added the cards, and then I realized, well, what would have been nice if I'd put the flowers in with some of the cards that are identical. So a pansy would go under the P for pansy, and so on and so forth. But it wasn't done that way, and there was no way that my OCD-ness would allow me to put these cards out of order. So whoever gets the book, they can change it to their heart's desire, but I had to have it this way. Oh, and this book is for sale. It is on my Etsy shop, and I'll put that link below. So each page, there's a card on the front and a card on the reverse. So this is how I'll do it here. We have 2 cards. This is for Apple Blossom and Bugle, and these are actual flowers that grow in England and United Kingdom, and a lot of them grow over here in the States. And then on the reverse, I've put more brown paper for writing space, and then stitched it with the contrasting black thread. And on the first page is the pansy. I'll put that behind there so you can see it better. The majority of these flowers and greenery came from our garden here in Madison, Alabama. A few of them came from my mother's house, which is in the neighboring city, if you will. I mean, we're basically a bedroom community of Huntsville, Alabama, and that's where my mother lives, and that's where some of the flowers came, but the majority of them did come from us. So this came from our garden, my husband's flower garden. He's an amazing gardener. And you can see the reverse there. And also I wrote what the name of the flower was somewhere around each template cutout, so that you'll know what that is. So let's go here, and I'm just going to put these in here like so. I'll go back and straighten it up later. And this one is the Lavender. Lavender is one of my favorites. If you've ever seen a field of lavender, it's just the most spectacular thing. I have like one more piece left from this spring, and then I'll have to wait till the next spring to get any more. Sorry, allergies are terrible today. This is Alabama. The cards for this one are the Columbine and the Double Daisy. We've grown Columbines here. I don't recall seeing Double Daisies, but... Oh, and also, if any of you recognize any of these flowers and you know a different name from what I'm telling you, please comment below and let me know. Again, there are some names that are in England that we call it different here over in the United States. Or if you know a common name that I'm not giving here, please, if you know that, it would be really nice if you would let me know. Here we have Phlox. Let me put one of these underneath so you can see it again. Such sweet small flowers. They're a pale lavender. Sometimes when you dry flowers, the color doesn't always come through, but oh, and it's funny, this one's fuchsia, which is really neat because it actually turned out that I had put fuchsia right here. So this one actually goes on the reverse. So that was nice. Let me get this here. Okay, and here we go, the fuchsia. And again, I'll put this back here. These are also called bleeding hearts. That's what I always knew them as, and my husband knew them as fuchsia, and compared the two, and I was like, ah, one and the same flower. And again, see, there's the card. It was really neat. I think that's the only place in the entire book that it actually happened that way. But it's all good. And here are the two cards that go with it, and that is Gorse and Herb Tuppence. Now, Herb Tuppence is one that later on in the thing you'll see an example of what we call creeping Jenny here, at least in the South. And even though mine weren't flowers, it was just the greenery, the Herb Tuppence is the same as the creeping Jenny here. So there are those. And here we have the dandelions. And the two cards are the iris and the jasmine. I did try and press an iris, but it did not turn out at all. It looked horrible. So I need to try that again and try it a little bit better. We have some Carolina jasmine. It looks different from this, but I've already used it up for this year. So anyway, jasmine we've done, and it turned out really pretty. It was a very sweet little flower. But as I said, the iris was, yeah, we need to work on that one. Here we have knockout roses, or rose. These are a really nice variety of rose. They grow very easily. They don't require any maintenance. I would probably never grow a rose bush because it seems to require so much maintenance, but these are really wonderful. At least down here in the South they are. And there's the reverse. And again, that's called a knockout rose. And the two cards that go with it, whoops, are the King Cup and the Lily of the Valley. I had some Lily of the Valley that I sold earlier this year, but they're no longer with us. It's, you know, it's past spring. They are such a sweet little flower. It's a little bell flower, and they literally are grouped like this on a stem, and they're so precious. A dear friend of mine, our neighbor, gave me some of it when we first moved in about, like I said, about 30 years ago, and we've had it ever since. And here we have, this is an Althea. That is one of my grandfather's favorite flowers. He had, and they get very large. They grow from bushes into literal trees, and he had some pink colored ones and some purple ones. Now we have pink and purple here, but this white one came from my mother's house in Huntsville, Alabama. I was quite tickled to get it. They remind me of orchids. I wonder if they're in the orchid family. I don't know. I know just enough about gardening to be dangerous. And the two cards are the Mallow and the Nasturtium. There's the reverse. Excuse me. Here we have, this one is also from my mother's house. It's a New Guinea Impatience. And it's kind of difficult to see, but you'll see this little tail that comes out. Just as sweet as anything. And it actually, I was able to save that part of it. It was like, yay! But a New Guinea Impatience. There's apparently several different kinds of impatience. I didn't know that. Here's the pansy. This is what should be up front, but oh, again, my OCD couldn't do it. So, but this is the orchis. I'm assuming that's in the orchid family. I don't know, but it kind of looks like it could be. And then the pansy. And again, the reverses are all done in the brown paper that's been distressed. Here we have a Lenten rose, or a Lenten rosebud, actually. They don't look like a normal rose at all. In full bloom, they're shaped differently. It's rather interesting, but anyway, that's what I've been led to know is this. That's what this is. And the cards that go with it are Queen of the Meadow and Ragged Robin. And again, these cards or they're not cards actually, they were pages that I just cut out and from those books that I mentioned earlier. Here we have Dianthus. We call these pinks, but some people call them Dianthus. And the cards are the Strawberry and Thrift. The strawberry, I haven't gotten any flowers from our strawberries yet, but I was able to get some of the leaves, and I like the leaves because they're very detailed and they dry really well, but I don't have any in this book here. My husband made this huge flower press for me, and I am keeping it full throughout the year. Every time something new blooms, I run out and attack it. And so far, my husband hasn't killed me yet. Yet. Here we have Coreopsis. I believe this is Coreopsis. Now, there's a funny story, of course. We were driving along the road. We were coming back from lunch, and I spotted a mimosa tree in a field. You know, the tree was growing next to the road, and these yellow flowers. And it was like, oh, can we stop? Can we stop? So my wonderful husband, very long-suffering, wonderful husband, he pulled over and found a place to stop, and he went back and told me to stay in the car. I'm very graceful. He knows I'd probably get killed trying to do this myself, so he did it for me, bless his heart. And we call these, or at least I've always called them, brown-eyed Susans and black-eyed Susans. But again, what I did, I looked online and did a little bit of research, and what they were showing for this area, it looks like the Coreopsis, so perhaps that's what it is. And the cards that go with that are the Wallflower and the Vetch. This Wallflower, if you've ever seen the stone walls in England, where I first saw it was along the south side, and it just literally grows out of the wall. It's so pretty. Needs very little dirt apparently, but it's really neat. And Vetch, about 20 years ago, right before my grandmother passed away, I was over at their house. It was about a year before she died, and we were going through their garden in the back and just picking various and sundry things because I didn't know anything about plants, flowers, anything. And what was really nice was that my grandfather and my grandmother, but mostly my grandfather, was able to say, or to let me know what the common country names were for a lot of these flowers and weeds and things that we picked. As a matter of fact, one of them, I was, writing all this down, and we had picked everything, and I said, what's this one? And he said, that's a weed. So, but I pressed those, and I actually, not only did I press them, but I framed them and they're hanging up in the house, and it's a lovely memory every time I walk by. So that's how long ago my pressed flower things started. I've always loved them, but I've never done anything with it other than those from that one day with my grandparents. This is the dandelion, and when I looked online to see if it was called something in particular, they called this a dandelion bloom. So, I don't know, but if you've ever tried to catch one of those things between two pieces of acetate and make it stay still, yeah, right. This was like my 5th attempt, and even so you can see it's kind of all over there. Just the slightest hint of air, and they go everywhere. And of course the girls, when they were little, they loved to blow on them. I did when I was a kid, but it's like, no, don't do that, because then we'll have dandelions all in the yard. Well, too bad. And with that are these 2 cards. This is the last of the alphabet cards, and this is the yellow dead nettle and the zinnia. And put this there, and here we start on pages that I pulled from the Flower Fairies of the Trees. And this flower is the moss rose. It almost looks as if it's in the succulent family, but what I like about it is you get like 4 or 5 different colors of roses all in one pot. It was really neat. Very dainty looking. They might trail down, I'm not sure. But again, that's the moss rose. And with that we have the beech tree fairy and the cherry tree fairy. And here we have what I mentioned earlier. This is what we call creeping Jenny, but it's also, in England, it's called herb tuppence. See that better like that. The colors change out. It was much more vibrant green, but again, when you dry them, you get what you get. The cards that go with this are the mulberry fairy and the pear blossom fairy. We have weeping mulberries. I've not seen these kind of buds on them, but then I haven't really been paying attention either, so I'll have to be watching that to see. But I don't really see flowers in this picture per se, so there may not be anything other than the leaves to press. Here we have one more from my mother's house. This is a hosta. It's called a paradigm hosta. Beautiful, and the color is just maintained itself really well. And they grow in groupings, and they sort of hang down off the limb, and they're so pretty. There are a huge number of varieties of hosta, and that one was like, yay, I love it. The 2 cards here are the almond blossom fairy and the plane tree fairy, Plane. This reminds me here, it reminds me of what we used to call a sweet gum tree. I don't know if it's the same or not. I'll have to do some research on that. But these little stickery things that would fall down, and why anyone came up with the term sweet gum tree, I have no idea. We always, as kids, we called it the sticker ball tree. What can I say? And the last page, this is the mimosa that my husband very generously traipsed out and got for me. You can't see the color real well. It was the palest pink, and it's got these little fine strands that it almost looked like corn silk, but the color didn't maintain itself. The little buds look really neat though. And then we have the Elderflower Fairy, and we have the Pine Tree Fairy. And here we are at the last page. Here is a little, this came from the book Fairyopolus. It's a little note, envelope, and in it is a letter that Cecily Mary Barker wrote. What she was doing, she was visiting a friend's house for several weeks during the summer, and that while she was there and working in the garden, she was inspired to create this book about the little fairies and what have you. So the little thing reads, "Goodbye, dear fairies. Thank you for allowing me to know of your presence and for bringing me joy and inspiration. These gifts will remain with me forever. I wish I were not leaving you, but I promise to return to Barton's one day. I hope you will still be here to greet me. I will never forget you as long as I live. Your loving friend, Cecily. Barton's is the name of the estate or house or whatever you want to call it that her friend owned, that she was staying there. So I thought, well, we have to include that. But the little envelope and the letter came from the book Fairyopolus. And this is a map of can't even say it. Map of Sussex, England. Again, this is from the book Fairyopolus. And this is, let me pull it here so you can see it there. It shows some of the places that she visited, and this is I believe this is the place where Barton's was located. But it's an actual map that was in the book. And I thought, perfect, perfect, perfect. Yay! So, that is the end of this. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, it will be for sale on my Etsy shop, and I'll put a link below. I'd love it, again, if you would let me know if you've recognized any flowers in here that have different names. Please let me know, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. If you're welcome to subscribe to my channel, and that way you'll know if I come up with anything new. I'm always coming up with something. I'm having more fun with journals and what have you. But I hope you have a blessed day. It's a lovely, hot, humid day here in Madison, but we are talking Alabama in July, so we can't expect much else. So have a blessed day, a blessed week, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.